Joining us by phone tonight is Colby Hamilton, City Hall reporter at DNA Info, and a proud alum of the school where I teach, CUNY's Graduate School of Journalism. Colby, it's nice to talk with you. With less than a week to go, do you see a scenario where Joe Lhota doesn't win or at least qualify for a runoff? You have the first word.
Thanks for having me, John. Yeah, there is definitely a chance Joe Lhota doesn't win. I've talked to some folks, and they think low turnout and a lot of the media barrage that you see from one of his opponents, John Catsimatidis, over the airwaves could definitely, serve to keep folks away or potentially really force some folks who are maybe on the fence to start looking at Catsimatidis. But, if you look at the polls, whether it's the Quinnipiac one that just came out where he has, I think, a 23-point lead or other ones where it was narrower, he has always led. And I know his campaign is very confident they're going to be able to pull this out on Election Day.
The Republican candidates been running low-key campaigns, or does it just feel that way with all the attention being paid to the Democrats?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. It helps whoever gets the Republican nominee is to not necessarily have all that attention, right? I mean, with the Democrats, they themselves are defining each other, they're defining themselves. They're going to go into the general election with a lot of things that have already been said, a lot of positions that they've taken, and they won't necessarily have a lot of room to, backtrack or wiggle without looking like they're doing just that. So the Republicans are going to be able to go into the general election, whoever it is, kind of with a clean slate. But at the same time, the contest has just not been that competitive on the Republican side. Like I mentioned, Lhota has kept a relatively consistent lead throughout the primary. And frankly, there just aren't that many voters compared to Democrats. There's only about 450,000 Republicans in the entire city. Just based on the number of enrollees, it makes sense that there's probably more focus put on the Democrats despite the past 20 years of a Republican mayor.
One of your recent interviews with Joe Lhota, he was counting on support from Democrats and independents in the general election. He cited the successes of Rudy Giuliani and Michael Bloomberg in the past. Is that a likely scenario this November, given the current state of things here in New York City?
Well, I think if you're the Lhota campaign, you're looking at the Democrats, and they won't say this on the record, but definitely, and some the consultants, the people that are watching this, I think would agree. There are certain matchups that if you're Joe Lhota or any of the Republicans, frankly, you'd rather have because they allow you to have separation. They allow you to define yourself in a way that is very clear, while your opponent is someone that's completely different. For Lhota, Bill de Blasio at this point is definitely the sort of person that they're looking at as a good matchup, the sort of person that they can say that we're on this side. There are overlapping issues, whether it comes to police, the South Frisk issue, taxes, a whole host of issues. They can say we're on this side. The Democrats on the other side. That's going to allow them to have that sort of distance that then they can talk to folks that maybe don't want to have someone quite as liberal as Bill de Blasio is positioning himself. That's a scenario where if you're the Lhota campaign, you think, yes, we can go out there, we can start talking to voters who are concerned about taxes, some of those, relatively conservative Democrats, and they have a scenario where they think they have a chance for winning under those circumstances.
What should we expect in the final days of the GOP primary? What is the strategy of the candidates in the final days?
Well, John Catsimatidis is spending a lot of money. That's both his greatest gift and the things, in a certain sense, hurting him. He spent, the last I looked, I think it was about $4 million compared to Lhota, who hadn't even hit the $3 million mark. So I think you're going to see a lot more Catsimatidis ads on the air. You're going to see a lot more mailers going out. He's going to have to use his money to try and leverage his image as someone that should be able to be out there and getting the Republican to vote. For Lhota, I think their strategy has been just targeting specific communities, specific groups, specific voters, going straight to them and saying, look, I've worked with Mayor Giuliani. I've had a whole host of business experience. They're very targeted. Catsimatidis, in a certain sense, has got to go big on this if he's going to start swaying folks to come out in his favor.
A couple days left. We'll be watching and reading your articles. DNA Info is the website. Colby Hamilton, City Hall reporter for DNA Info. Thank you so much for calling up and having the first word tonight.